Nino.
And I'm Christine Rothdeutsch.
And before we get underway, we want to remind you how much we'd appreciate a like or a comment or a share. Today we're talking about lapses in judgment and how that can lead to poor decision making that can impact the way we run our businesses. We're going to talk about why that happens, and we're going to share some ideas to correct some of those missteps. Christine actually opened this discussion when we were off the cuff one day and was talking about something that she did that when she stepped away from it was very frustrating to herself. So, Christine, why don't you share that?
Okay, well, being totally transparent here, there were two things very close to one another. It's kind of like the rabbit hole, going down the rabbit hole. The first one was attempting to make some videos. I tend to look at things that other people are doing and say, I can do that. Oh, let me figure this out. I'm pretty sure I can make something of at least, 75% of the quality that they've done it. And I was making myself crazy. There I was. It wasn't just a one camera video. It was a 2-camera video. One from the front, one from the side, using 2 different cameras and trying to, get the thing synced and then to edit, because I have editing software. I can do this. Sure, I can. Barbara, I forget how much time I was doing this. And I was like,
You told me it was quite a bit of time, actually.
I had to smack myself upside the head. Not literally, but I really needed somebody to smack myself upside the head because it was such a poor use of my time. It really was. I said, and that's my problem, that I like to figure so much out. And then I find that I'm not doing those things that I need to be doing, that I require, that are going to help me move forward the fastest. And yeah, that was just the one. The other one was doing some research on something, and I was looking for something very particular. I was on the website going through all their blog articles and looking for something. Oh, here's something interesting. Oh, well, yeah, maybe that would be good to wait. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. Stick to what I am looking for, because I have taken in so many tidbits of information over these years. Just tuck it away. One day I'll use it. Yeah, I don't. And it's that's the short version of all of this.
Takes me back to being an English major in college and reading 18th century literature and Samuel Johnson saying, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions," because your intentions were so pure. But in your meandering and in your too much research and sucking in all that extra stuff, you first wasted time, which took you away not only from the goal that you had set out to accomplish, but from doing other things that are key to the business. And I think that can happen so easily today because, once again, information overload. There's so much out there and it's so helpful, or so we think, and we start trying to soak it up like a sponge. And sometimes we really do get overloaded with information ourselves. For one thing, we probably know more than we think. For another thing, a lot of the information that we're taking in is actually very similar, but people are saying it or sharing it in different ways. So we've wasted all this time and we haven't moved the needle forward. And that definitely, if you look at that on a daily basis, a weekly basis, monthly, and yearly, I bet if one was really very particular about meting out the time and writing it all down, doing time tracking, I bet we'd find out there were a lot of lost hours and piles of extra information that, because there's so much, if we put them in a Word file or whatever, we may never get back to.
Well, and I think, Barbara, that what people and maybe our audience is thinking the same thing is that they identify with social media in this respect of going down that rabbit hole of going on Facebook or one of the other platforms just to do one thing, and before they know it, they're lost in checking out what all the posts are. But
Oh, yes.
they may not
That's a big
look at
one.
these other areas of the time that they're spending, and having those lapses in judgment of really working towards the goal that they first thought of when they started to do X, Y, and Z. It's so easy, and that's the hard thing of being a business owner and not having that boss breathing down your neck of, "Get this piece of work done." We can jump from task to task, and nobody's gonna come back at us about that, and that makes it difficult. It
That's that's really a good point, because being that many of us are in small businesses or businesses by ourselves, solopreneurs, or even if there are other people in the business, the fact that we're working remotely, uh, we are left a lot to our own devices.
Mhm.
So there's an element of self discipline to an extreme that wasn't always needed in a corporate setting where there was someone to whom you had to report, to whom you had to be accountable. And that would force you to really measure your time and use the time you had more efficiently.
Yeah, yeah, and, this is part of this conversation, as I was thinking about it earlier, is it's a difficult conversation. Again, here we are as business owners talking about this and the wise use of our time and not going down rabbit holes of looking at somebody else's information and getting that little nugget of, oh, wait a minute here. Ooh, but I want people to read my stuff.
Yeah.
I want people to get my free offer and get on my list. So I'm asking them to I guess, though, I'm not asking my audience to get waylaid by what I'm putting in front of them, because I'm a big proponent of being more aware of what it is you truly need versus here's a shiny object that comes by and, "Oh, I think I need this." But yeah, here we are saying, we need to be more aware of working towards our goal, and yet we're really asking people to, take a look at what we have too, but on a more educated level, I guess knowing what it is they
Well,
need.
when we're though talking about that shiny object syndrome, or researching too much, or even signing up for this and that webinar, and maybe you're signing up for too many that are very similar. Um, I think it's not whether one individual is asking us to do X, Y, or Z. Um, it's that we're being distracted, actually, by so many things out there in cyberspace that we feel where we need to run towards them. There's a little bit of FOMO, the little
Mhm.
bit of fear of missing out. If I don't get this last bit of information, sign up for this last webinar, read that next blog, that I'll miss something vital. And it's really, we have to think about trusting ourselves.
Mhm.
I think the other problem too is multitasking. There's so much, it seems, we have to fit in to the hours of each day. And a lot of times we're trying to do too many things at one time. I've seen people on Zooms, uh, you know, typing. So they're obviously doing some work while they're on the Zoom, and I'm not faulting them. Um, I've probably done it myself, but you're not fully
Mhm.
present in any one activity. And when you think about how you run your business, if you're not fully present, particularly in the important tasks that you need to get done, you can miss a step, mess up, do something wrong, have to go back and regroup and do it over again. So we have to be careful um, about trying to accomplish too many things simultaneously.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, our brains, now I'm getting into this brain stuff and mindset stuff again. Um, we're only capable of, I mean, really, multitasking is a misnomer. Yeah, we really can't multitask. Our brains can't do it. And as you mentioned about people on Zoom and typing away, I don't know how they do it, because I need to pay if it's a learning situation, I need to pay attention, and I'll write notes, absolutely. But when people are in chatting in the Zoom chat, oh my God, how do you absorb the information? Um, but I think that's another topic, I
So, sort of, but the concept is the same because I've actually heard um, more recently than ever before um, hosts of webinars or events and such to say, refrain from typing in the chat now. Or them saying, I can't concentrate on what I'm saying to you if I'm reading the
Mhm,
chat.
mhm,
It's the same concept
mhm.
of being pulled away from the goal or task at hand. And it's something we all have to be aware of. I also think another thing is associated with perfection. So it's like that concept of getting ready to get ready to get ready. It's I have to study more, I have to study more, I have to study more before I can go out and do X. And it is really um,
Mhm.
paralysis. So instead of moving forward, instead of knowing when enough is enough, instead of trusting what you already know and the salient information you have, you keep thinking that there's more because you want to be perfect.
Mhm.
And perfect really is only good as good enough
Right, well,
if you think about it.
again, though, taking all this time to learn something, but then not putting it into action, where's the benefit?
Right. Not putting it into action, where's the benefit?
Although,
Absolutely.
like I said in my story earlier, I was trying to put something into action, but realized it was a poor use of my time, that, just a simple video would get done a lot faster and be more beneficial than what I was trying to do. Yeah, it's all those things in our business that we're not it's not, really conscious of what we're doing. We get kind of waylaid, like, oh, I'm just going to do this little thing here, and before you know it, you've really dug that rabbit hole deep. uh
That's kind of interesting the way you described. I had this vision of a camera in the front, a camera to the side, just as you said. And basically, you were making it more complicated, I would imagine, because you had to sync everything, sound and video and whatever. Whereas if you'd just done a simple video in your studio, you could have probably done it quite quickly. And the result would have not only been good enough, but it would have been darn good
Mhm.
to teach the lesson or whatever that you wanted to
Yeah.
teach. And by the way, I think emotion can get in the way. Have you ever, if you were mad at yourself after that and then you took up on a different task, I would be willing to bet, and I certainly know this has happened to me, that there would be that nagging something that was on my mind, and that too would slow me down for completing what I wanted to complete. I mean, all these things are very human, and it's so easy for any of us to fall into these I'm going to call them bad habits.
Yeah, well,
But knowing them helps us check them,
right.
right? And correct them.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. Bad habits, Barbara. Absolutely, and boy, I've had too many years to be able to form these bad habits. It's not so easy after you form them. Well, it's like raising your kids, you try to break them of the bad habits when they're young so that, they're on a good road when they become the adult. But it's yeah, we said lapses in judgment, but it's kind of like those bad habits of letting ourselves go down a path that really isn't going to be productive and get to the goal that we had in mind. um and when I say goal, I mean it's just maybe it's the goal is just to complete a task.
Yes.
It can be
Yes.
something small, but we lose sight of that. It's too easy for the mind to wander. And that's why I think it's good to keep a tablet on your desk with you. And one, like, if you find something that might be of interest, then write that down. Maybe write the website down or whatever it is. Jot down a note and move on. You get rid of it, but you jotted it down and then come back when you do have the time. Maybe you need something to do just before bedtime of, just mindless stuff. It's like, all right, I'm going to catch up on these things. But I'm willing to bet if you would do that and keep a list of those things to come back to, you wouldn't come back to it because you'd realize, oh, I don't need that. Yeah, I don't need that. And I bring this up because on my browser, I have what's called one tab, that when I need to collapse all my open windows, that 101, when you have 101 windows open and you need
Yes.
to close, I use this to close everything down. And especially like when we're doing our broadcasts here, it helps to save the bandwidth of the browser. It closes everything down into one tab so that I can easily go back and open everything up that I need. I can't even tell you how many tabs are sitting over there that I never go back to.
So I think the interesting thing about that, and I like that idea of creating a list of, oh, this came in front of me. This might be something I'd like to pursue. Um, it allows you then to be discriminatory,
Mhm.
doesn't it? Because at second look, with maybe a little more concentrated thought, if you had written down 10 items, maybe you would see that only 5 are
Mhm.
relevant. And again, it would be more of an efficient use of time. I think another thing to do is um, to be your own diligent
Mm.
timekeeper. So, back to the video that you were trying to make, what was a reasonable length of time to allocate to making that video? Write that down and make sure that you keep to that schedule. That way, through you are managing
Mhm.
your time, and it should prevent you from wandering too far, too often, too long, if at all. So on the front end, that is something to consider as well.
Yeah, and that's why the people who use time blocking and really stick to it are the most productive.
Yes.
You
Yes.
it sounds too confining and too constricting, but the people that I talk to that are avid at time blocking are the most productive, and that is one of my goals. I mean, I talk about time blocking, in some of my talks, but I need to do much better, with my own time blocking and stick to it. Because when you do that, you're really laying out your plan of the most important things that you need to do. So it just makes sense to.
That's actually when we talk about time blocking. I find too that people who are really good with that time management get more done. They're not the people who are coming, who are sighing deeply and going, "There's just not enough hours in the day," um, because they've found an efficient way to manage the time instead of letting the time and the tasks manage them.
Mhm.
Um, Someone had told me about this little timekeeping device that she has that you actually start. It's a digitized version of one of those little
Oh, the sand, like the egg
hourglass, yes,
timer?
the
Mhm.
sand or the hourglass. And so when you start a task, you decide how long it's going to be, you set the timer, and when that buzzer goes, and you keep monitoring the time so that when that buzzer goes off, you can count on being done. And that goes back to the perfection thing and the good enough thing, too. Not that anyone should be slovenly, but when to know that a task is complete. I mean, certainly as a writer, I've been known to perseverate for a while on a word. And really, does that make sense? There's plenty other occasion to go back in and edit and take a look again, but maybe not perseverate
Mhm.
so long on one sitting. So that's something that I check myself on, and something about which I've become more self-disciplined. I think the other thing too is maybe to figure out what tasks need to be done when. Uh, we've talked about this before. Do you want to make your calls in the morning? Do you want to do your lesson plan in the morning? Do I want to do a client website in the morning? Typically, people are more alert and wide awake in the morning. Um, or if your time clock is different, figuring out what tasks need that period of time
Mhm.
at which you'll be most alert and best able to make decisions.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I agree. I think a majority of people are more productive in the morning. However, I do know at least one person that does work at nighttime, and that person does have a hard time making morning meetings, as I've learned. But yeah, and yeah, we're all different. And when is the most productive time? Absolutely. But we have to, I think, just be more in tune with what it is that we're working on. And when we tend to shift a little bit and start going down another path, ask ourselves, is this part of what I need to accomplish right now, or am I going down a path in the opposite direction? But it's being more aware of what we're doing really with every moment of our time. It's not easy, but we
Truly
need.
being more aware. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And also taking the time on the front end of doing anything, of stopping and thinking and plotting it out rather than diving in and sort of flailing without any forethought or
Mhm.
strategy. Um, Planning ahead is all part of the self discipline and
Right.
checking ourselves, all of that.
Yes, yes, and so yeah, make your little checklist of the things that you need to accomplish, and you check them off, and the time, maybe you have some time left over, maybe you just made it on time, but yeah, being fully aware of your time and what you need to accomplish. So, I hope that our listeners have enjoyed this episode of Soapbox Wisdom. Oh my goodness. And we hope to see you next time. Soapbox Wisdom is hosted by brand messaging and storytelling consultant Barbara Menino and business and mindset coach Christine Rothdeutsch. You can find them online at barbaramenino.com and Christine